Welcome everybody, this is SharePoint Patterns and Practices, General SharePoint Development Special Interest Group. And basically in this special interest group, we're going to talk about everything else except the SharePoint framework and client-side development topics like PnP JS and Yeoman generators and all of that. We do have a separate a special interest group for those topics as well. This has been a quite busy week as well, because we did have a monthly community call on this week as well. So the monthly community calls are kind of positioned more as a Microsoft presentation calls, and we kind of allocate the demos on those calls based on Microsoft PMs. So on actually, as an example, in December, we'll have Jacks coming in and talking 40 minutes, roughly 40 minutes on all of the new goodies which we announced in the Ignite related on Power Apps integration with SharePoint and OneDrive. So in this one, first we're going to do a quick recap of what's happening on the PnP CSOM Core side of the house, what's happening in the PMP PowerShell, and what's happening in the modernization tooling. And today I'm going to do a first demo, so I'm going to show you the updated SharePoint Lookbook assets, well, the functionality and assets. Most likely you are aware that there's a new lookbook available, and what does it actually contain? We'll do a recap of that one. But more importantly, the lookbook website and all of those assets which you see in the lookbook site are also open source. So you can actually take advantage of those things even though you wouldn't use the lookbook site as such. Or if you want to build something like the lookbook site for your customers, you can actually download the code. It is fully open source and you can build your solutions on top of it. So that's actually pretty cool as well. Then we have Tracy Sterling talking about the transforming classic themes to modern themes. So we have still a lot of customers using the classic SharePoint, and they might have classic themes there. And Tracy has implemented this really cool application or a solution which will transform classic theme colors to the modern theme colors. So kind of translating what is a classic theme to the modern theme. And I think we'll see that one in practice today. And then we have Bullock, who's been helping really actively. Thank you, Paul, for that. Bert on the modernization tooling side of the house, and he's going to show in practice what's going to happen or about the account mapping feature in base transformation when moving across environments. So as an example, when you're moving your content from on-premises to the cloud, you might need to do transformation of the accounts between that transition, and that capability is supported by the open source transformation tooling. So really, really cool stuff as well. And then Q&A in the end if we have time for that. Now, just to recap again, the opportunities to participate with the community. You can demo a solution or technical pattern. It's nothing more than pinging any of the core team members, me, Patrick, Bert, any of the other ones, and then we'll set you a spot in the community calls, and you're able to demonstrate let's say an example solution like what Tracy and Paul are showing, or a example example provisioning solutions, architectures, technical patterns in this one. You can contribute in GitHub. We do welcome absolutely contributions in all of the GitHub repositories. That includes also documentation, or you can just provide feedback as well, which is super important. If there's something which you do not like, please let us know so we are able to help you and we're able to address your concerns or your findings. SharePoint Dev Docs, AKMS SP Dev Docs, documentation, SharePoint Dev Videos, AKMS SP Dev Videos. This comes up in every single community call. So everybody is always asking, is this getting recorded and where can I get the recording? You can get the recording from our YouTube SharePoint Dev YouTube channel from the AKMS SP Dev videos. And all of our community calls, all of our demos and everything else are published through there. We already have like 13,000 subscribers over there and 2.5 million yearly watch time minutes, which is quite a big number as well. And AKMS SP Dev issues for any issues related development issues which you find in on-premises or in the cloud. So we're able to then address your findings from the engineering side of the house. But let's actually do a quick recap on our open source projects on this side of the house. So let's first go through the PnP CSOM Core library, and Bert is going to talk about what has happened since 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes, the usual update. So
yes.
For PnP CSOM Core, we had the November release last week. And looking back at that one, what are the new capabilities? I think the biggest new thing is our JSON-based definition of how to extract or apply a template, which offers way more flexibility, more features. So if you're into extracting templates, definitely have a look at that model. I think Erwin showed it in one of the previous calls as well. So it's really powerful and flexible. We're also having support for tenant template extraction. What that means, for example, is that you point into a site collection and we'll find, for example, we'll see like this site collection is a hub site. It has associated sites to the hub. So we'll find the associated sites, we put them in a template. If the site has subsites, we put them in a template as well. So we built like the whole tree of sites and subsites for you as a template, which is really cool, and it really helps you to, if you want to extract like more complex scenarios. And then we also finalized most of the September 2019 PnP provisioning schema features. I think everything is kind of complete. Maybe the one thing that definitely is lacking is multilingual pages. So we announced and we showed already like a multilingual modern pages. We have support for it in the schema, but we still need to implement that one. Looking forward.
That was, by the way, announced in Ignite last week, so it's kind of understandable that it's not yet in the open source tooling, but it will be there pretty soon.
It's not rolled out yet to your tenants, so but once it's available, more globally available in your tenants, that we can also implement it and make it available for you guys. Furthermore, I think what's next is mainly the usual PRs. So we did some good progress in PR processing actually last month, but there's still pending things that we have to look into. And then the multilingual support, hopefully we can spend some time on it before we release the December version. And looking at usage, things keep on growing. I think it's no surprise, and it's kind of maybe a bit boring, but we just keep on growing. Like in October, there was, just for your information, there's 23,400 tenants that use the PnP Core component, which is quite a lot. I think that sums it up, Vesa. Let's move to Erwin for the PowerShell side.
Let's move to the PnP PowerShell side of the house. Erwin, are you on a call? I didn't double check.
Yep. Yes, I am. Awesome. Yep. By the way, one thing that Bert didn't mention, if you extract a tenant template with the latest release, we also allow you to extract teams. So it will create the whole structure for a team there. The thing is though that you need to update. We released a schema last month. That schema needs to be updated. We haven't released the latest schema yet. I actually have to talk to Vesa about that. The moment that one is out there, then we have lots of more configuration options for you to extract templates, including tenant templates with teams and etc. So what has changed to PowerShell? A couple of updates to the convert to PnP client-side page. Those are not written by me. They are written by Bert. Bert knows everything about those. And I leave that completely up to him. So Bert, if you have any updates on those?
I think the main updates are around the new support for account mapping, the things that Paul will show in the demo, so I'm not going to talk too much about it right now.
Okay. So then we have a couple of updates to search settings, or new command lists for search settings. They are written by Mikael Svensson, who is by far the person that I know of that is the most deeply knowledgeable about search. He wrote those two command lists. When I was working on something else that me and Bert are currently coding on, actually, I ran into some issues with actually receiving all kinds of access tokens for all kinds of sessions that I needed to do. And the get PnP access token commandlet that we have in PowerShell only returns an access token for the graph. Now with the request PnP access token, you can basically request an access token for everything, whatever you want, specific client applications, client IDs, specific scope, specific resources. So have a look at that commandlet. It should help you out getting an access token pretty easily. The set PnP hub site has been updated. Now I have to be honest, I actually haven't looked in what changed in that one specifically. So sorry for that. There is a new commandlet to get PnP hub site child, which is a very nice commandlet that simply lists all the sites in your tenant that have been associated with a specific hub site. Very easy way of saying, okay, given hub site X, show me all the sites that actually are associated with that hub site. And also something that has been on the backlog for, I dare to say, years, but finally we tell you where your template is wrong if you apply a template or read a template with the command.
Yes.
Yes, finally, we tell you that a certain attribute is missing, or if you made a typo in a attribute, then we tell you that that certain element has no support for that attribute because the attribute has been is wrong. So that's a very nice addition, I would say, and hopefully makes your lives a bit easier instead of the template is not correct error message, which is not very useful because then you have to open it in Visual Studio and associate the schema with it, and then you'll finally see it. Now we'll tell you that in the commandlets. So that's a very nice change, I think. That was it.
That's it. One point maybe to notice that there's 14,400 tenants using the PMP PowerShell in October. So that is again a pretty massive number. So it's good to see that the usage is growing in this side as well. So, and by the way, if somebody's, because I know that people are always wondering with this question, will we have PMP Sites Core or CSOM Core or PMP PowerShell Core available soon? Because we should get it soon. Then the answer is we need to get the native out-of-the-box CSOM first out in the .NET Core or .NET Standard, which is now scheduled between January and March next year, and then after that we can start working on the core versions of PMP PowerShell and the PMP Sites Core. Now let's jump on the modernization side of the house. So let's jump back on Bert. Just updates on this side.
Yep, modernization tooling. It's comprised out of two tools. It's the transformation framework, which does page transformation, so taking your classic wiki, web part, blog, and publishing pages living in SharePoint on-prem or online, and kind of converting those into modern pages living only in SharePoint Online. So target always SharePoint Online. So the key new thing with the last version, the November version, is account mapping, which will be the topic of Paul's demo later on today. But besides that, we now have, when you do publishing page transformation, then we have the option for you to use define section emphasis. So because like publishing page transformation, you do that by creating a page layout mapping file. So there's a file that translates the classic publishing page layout file into the modern page. And that mapping file now allows you to say like, I want this particular section in a certain emphasis. Plus, you can now also define vertical columns. So I put vertical section, but it should be vertical column on the slide. But like, which is pretty is a real nice thing to have in publishing scenarios. So you can your target page can have a vertical column with a specific emphasis if needed. So this makes it more. You can make more beautiful pages with this now.
Yeah, like
looking for.
Designs. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe you'll show it in a demo later on today as well, Vesa. Yeah. So upcoming changes. So looking at things, we're getting pretty feature complete actually. But one of the things that we still miss is taxonomy mapping. So the idea is that, like in on-prem, you have a page in on-prem that has metadata that points to a certain term set and term. Now, if you move that page over to online as a modern page, it would be cool to see if that if we can in online do we find the same term there with the same name, term set and term. Okay, then we kind of use that. Otherwise, we fall back to like, for example, a term mapping table or file. We have to still envision how that would be, but essentially the idea is to also take over your terms used in metadata in the modern environment. For the scanner, last time we had some workflow info-path scanning updates. We introduced scanning for block pages, and we introduced that the scanner could run with lower permissions, being sites read all instead of full control. Looking forward, there's like a major refactoring of the scan coming up, which doesn't necessarily deliver functionality for this particular for the scanner itself, but it does make the scanner more reusable in other scenarios. I think that's the key thing that we're working on. From a usage perspective, you see the graph, the middle graph with the red arrow. Things keep on growing. So we did about 65,000 pages in October. And you see the color boxes on top. We have like a big amount of pages coming from 2010, from 2013, and 2019. 2016 is not so heavily used apparently in transformation, but this kind of really indicates that folks are transforming pages from on-prem to online, which is good. I like that. Looking at the distribution, it's Wiki pages is still the big one. Publishing pages almost close, and then there's some web part and blog pages. Yep, I think that sums it up.
The web part pages are the classic web part pages, which are really from 2010.
Really old classic web part pages.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're there.
Yep, there's still plenty of those files. Now, let's actually move into the demo section of today. So that was a quick update on the open source projects of the house. They are widely being used, so we keep on evolving those things based on the requests and input from everybody. So thank you for your input as well. But let's actually move into the demo. So I'm going to do roughly like 15-20 minutes or 15 minutes on the lookbook side. Then we go to Trace, and then we go to Paul, and that should be it. And we'll have some time for Q&A if needed in the end. But I think many of you are aware that we released a new version of SharePoint Lookbook in Ignite last week. So I wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of the functionality and also what's possible related on the Lookbook itself. So let me actually jump to a UI in here, and let me actually jump to the Lookbook site. But Lookbook is available in address of lookbook.microsoft.com, and this is really intended to show what kind of beautiful designs you can build using modern SharePoint. And it doesn't actually end there, but let me explain what I mean with that one. So we have like 12 to 13 different templates right now, and we're looking into adding more here as well. So there's the organizational templates like leadership connections, the landing, the news site, the perspective and benefits, department templates, team templates, community templates, and then solutions like the learning pathways can be provisioned from here as well. Now, let's actually do this demo in a kind of a classic demo. The perspective is a good template, and this is intended or designed to be, for example, the company landing page in the SharePoint Online. And this could be easily then switched to the root side of your tenant because all of those PowerShells are available. So you could actually modify this to be your template as well. All of the designs in the Lookbook designs, they basically have an example content. We use the Contoso Electronics as the brand, but you can imagine if you flip all of those logos based on your company logos, you can easily make this look relevant for your company as well. Now, the idea of Lookbook is, and obviously Lookbook is available also as a PDF, so you can actually have a look on the beautiful designs, have a look on what kind of things and what are we thinking behind of the designs, kind of a reasoning behind of the models and all of that. Now, for all of the Lookbook templates, we also provide internal insights on how it has been built. So as an example, footer functionality. So this one has the custom, well, not a custom footer, out-of-the-box footer, which has a logo here. And if you're interested in understanding functionality on that, you can click the links, and it opens up the relevant information around that topic. So from our different documentations. So as an example, thank you, Chris, by the way, on the awesome picture. As an example, the SharePoint site footer is being covered in this documentation, and it's linked directly on the Lookbook site. So you can easily understand what's possible or what is a vertical section. And then we have a support article explaining what is a vertical section, how does it actually work, and what are the dependencies and all of that. So you can easily understand how the functionality actually works in practice. Now, more importantly, it's not just about site features, it's also about which web part has been used. So as an example, we're using a weather web part here in the top right corner. We're using recent documents, we're using sites, and for all of these, we also link the relevant documentation. So as an example, my recent sites is a web part over there on this side of the house, and if I click that one, I can get more insights on my recent sites web part and what are the options and how to configure that, so you learn how the functionality actually works, so what's possible and what are the different layout settings and everything else. Now, this is obviously nice. You can read about the functionality, you can read about how things actually work based on the documentation, but even more importantly, underneath here we can actually see the most, let's say, interesting functionality, which is add to your tenant. So you can actually deploy these templates and these templates to your tenant as long as you are a tenant administrator. Now, we're looking into actually reducing that requirement as well in the future. There are unfortunately certain APIs which are demanding still a tenant admin or admin permissions. So this is only for tenant administrators, but you can easily get a trial tenant, or you can use our Office 365 developer program to get your tenant, and then you're able to actually provision this to be available. Quick point on that one. I'm going to quickly jump away from the demo developer program. So if you search for the Office 365 developer program, you can easily find developer program details, and that is a free tenant. You can get a free tenant for a automatic 90-day renewal as long as you use it for developer purposes, and you will be a tenant administrator on this tenant. Even more importantly, it's E5. So it's E5 developer tenant with 25 user licenses, so you can truly test functionalities and build cool looking stuff on that. So if nothing else, if you haven't done this already, subscribe to the program, get yourself a tenant, and then you are a tenant administrator. So you're able to click the Add to Your Tenant functionality. That will do a consent and application. So now I have already consented this application to be the needed permissions. So it didn't ask me to consent. So first time when you actually do this, it's going to ask you to consent the needed permissions. But it's nothing more than then filling up the form. So based on the selection, like in here, we selected the perspective. We fill out the form with the default values based on a template and the default URL. If I remember correctly, in my tenant, this URL is actually free. So it's going to do validating, is the URL free? And it is free. If it's not free, if I would try to override an existing site collection, it will warn me. It will warn me that the site collection URL is already taken. You can still apply on top of it, but the provisioning is not necessarily successful. So we do recommend that you would actually create this as a clean site collection, because then it's more reliable end result based on the creation. Now, one thing to also notice right now, we have only tested this to work truly in English tenants. So if you have a non-English language tenant, that support is coming future on. So we need to make sure that that's working properly in the non-English tenants as well. But again, nothing more than this, and you can provide an email address to get notified when the provision is completed. You could use your own address. In this case, I'm using the admin address of that particular tenant. So that's it. And clicking provision, it's going to validate the tenant prerequisites. So it's going to check that I'm truly the right permissions, and so then based on a template, it might actually validate that app catalog exists, because that would be required based on a template as well. And then it's wanting me to confirm what is getting provisioned, and it can take approximately 5 minutes to actually complete, and clicking confirm, and that's it. Within 5 minutes, I will get an email, or if I keep this page open and the tab open, this link will be flipped to be actual link, and it's going to say provisioning completed, or I will get an email to this email address, which will say that, hey, you have a nice site collection available in the given address. Now, let me actually show you that email, just to walk through the process. So I'm going to go to this tenant. I'm going to go to my Outlook. Come on. Here we go. So you'll see how the things are looking. Now, there was a question related on the old dev tenants were E3. That is true. The new AE tenants are E5, and they automatically renew. The old tenants, there's unfortunately no transformation of the older tenants to the new model. And I don't think the team responsible of the Office 365 developer program is working on that one, unfortunately. So I don't think that's actually coming, unfortunately. But you can subscribe to the program with a new email address, and that's the easiest way to actually get a new tenant available. Yes, definitely recommending to getting the new E5. So let me actually try again to go to the Outlook. Or is my network connectivity somehow slow? It is slow. Fine, I'm not going to go to the Outlook then. Now, what you get in a second, and we'll double check that the end result with this one in a second. I'm going to just use the landing, which I already requested or provisioned before as a landing point. Well, in our case, we selected the perspective. So this would be the outcome in my tenant. What I've done also in my tenant is that I actually set the company logo and company settings so that the company profile has the Contoso Electronics on the top left corner. Obviously, again, it depends on which tenant you're using and what kind of settings you actually have there. Now, but this is precisely what you're getting out of that selected template. You'll get example news articles, example news, example the documents, even example pictures, and all of the different things. The navigation settings and demos are available. So these are exactly the same designs which we as a Microsoft used in our demos in Ignite this year. So there's no longer kind of a delay, or you don't have to worry about, oh, how would I get the cool looking sites which Microsoft is actually demoing in Ignite? This is it. this is how we actually created them. So we used in many of the demos and many of the demo tenants which we used in Ignite, we actually provisioned them an example content using this provisioning service. Now, there's a lot of different templates available like that. The perspective, the landing, which are intended to be the landing pages, links to the Yammer, and all of those things, marketing sites with example content, documents, and pictures, which are completely open source, and you can use all of these assets any way you want. Or conference designs and cool looking pictures and cool looking designs. And the beauty of this one is that it's not just that you'll go to the, let me actually go in here. It's not just that you have a look on the how the template has been created using this functionality. You can actually go to the site, you can take the page on the edit mode, and that's it. And then you can actually have a look on, oh, that's that's a web board. Okay, so what are the settings? Oh, I can add multiple other other weather things here as well. So let me add here Helsinki. Oh, actually we have a better weather than Seattle. Wow. And I can flip that to Celsius and Fahrenheit. So you'll have a hands-on experience what's possible related on the modern experiences on SharePoint. And sure, you can use this as a starting point for your own intranet, and then you start modifying the images and all of that if that is what you want to do. They are intended to be used as a demo, so you'll learn definitely how to create these kind of designs as well. So let me do republish. Marketing, there was conference designs. That's pretty cool looking design as well. Communication designs with example documents even. And all of the documents which were provisioned from here will be then available from the search. So you can really easily build a cool demo environments using all of these assets which are available part of these templates. And that's the benefit side as an example. And we got an email. Our new provisioning is completed. So let me actually open up that email. There we go. It came actually as a pop-up. So there is a new link which is saying right now on this moment, the perspective template has been completed. Request the provision. Okay, and open site. We will actually open the perspective URL. And we can see the outcome of that provisioning and the selected template. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? Woohoo! If there would be audio on the screen, don't unmute yourself. It will get messy if you do that. Now, that's really cool. So you can use all of this to provision cool sites. And I still remember when I started in Microsoft back in 2006 with SharePoint 2007, and when just GA, the number one thing what I had as a consultant was the request on how do I create my demos? This is how we can do demos in 2019. You'll just set up the demo environment, just set up the templates you want, and that's it. Then you're good to go. Obviously, you can modify these. You can still go to the site, change the look. You can modify, for example, the theme based on the whatever customer selection or your company selection. So if you prefer that to be orange, you can definitely flip the theme to be orange. We can do something like header. Let's change the look and header and put the header in orange as well. And voila, we're looking much nicer. So you can really easily use the modern theming capabilities then to set the base colors based on your company colors as well, which by the way, Tracy is going to show within a few minutes. So don't miss that demo as well. Now, before I actually close up, really cool stuff available. You can provision these as many as you want, as many times as you want. You don't have to wait this to complete. You'll get an email. You could just as well go to the site and start provisioning as many of the templates to your sample tenant as needed. So there's a multi-threading behind of the scenes and as your application. Now, some of you are developers, so you might be interested on, hey, so that's actually really cool. How has the whole thing been built? Ta-da, and that's all open source. So earlier today, we just updated, Paolo Pialorsi is one person, and we just updated at github.com/SharePoint SP provisioning service is the URL. We just updated the latest code to be available here. And this is actually how the whole lookbook / provisioning the SharePoint PnP service has been built. Behind the scenes, we are actually using two different applications and URLs and all of that. Don't get super confused on that one, but there's the lookbook, and then there's basically almost an identical sister, which is the SharePoint provisioning service. And when we do provisioning in here, you actually move between the lookbook URL and the provisioning service, but don't get fooled on that. The actual code anyway is available in GitHub as an open source solution. So just as well, if you or your company or your customer would like to have a customer specific experience, which requires authentication to their Azure AD, you could actually use this code to get this one up and running and then modify that based on your customer requirements. Or even actually better. So what about those templates? What about those templates and assets and images and everything else? Sure, they're all open source as well. They are in github.com/SharePoint/SPDev provisioning templates. Thank you, Christian, by the way, for the sample. Let me put the URL on the chat as well. So all of the templates which you saw are available in here. Some of these are actually Lookbook V1 templates, and most of them are Lookbook V2 templates. So as an example, the perspective is a template which is in here. The actual template file, now I accidentally flipped. Actual template file is the perspective PnP in here. If I go to the source, I can actually see the PnP tenant template, which could actually contain also theme structures and many of the other structures as well. But this is the actual tenant template behind the scenes, which you can again modify and repackage. And even better, if we go to the source, you actually get to the assets. So even the documents which are behind the scenes getting provisioned, everything behind the scenes is fully open source. So you're able to use any of these things any way you want within your own implementation, and hopefully make millions or get super excited on the modern SharePoint. Now, if you are interested on what we use behind the engine itself, this is PnP tenant remote provisioning engine. We have updated the documentation. We talked about the PnP provisioning tenant templates, PnP provisioning templates. All of this documentation has been quite recently updated, so late October, early November. We need to just double check with Irvin that we updated actually the date, because some of these dates were looking still older than. No, actually, no, that's too old. Anyway, I think we updated all of the pages, so we just need to double check that the dates were updated. But this is the documentation, which is then explaining what is the technology, what we're using here, how does it actually work. And as an example, you can use the PnP tenant templates also to provision team structures. So all of that is getting documented and referenced against our schema files, so you can easily learn how to make these things happen. So PnP provisioning schema is explained here, and what are the possibilities and what are the things what you can do in a tenant level, which is pretty cool. But I'm looking under the clock. I could go on and on and on. We're super excited on the lookbook site itself, and have a look on it. And obviously, one thing maybe still to note here. Obviously, in this case, we are provisioning SharePoint structures and SharePoint templates, but it's important to realize that in Microsoft 365, in Office 365, we are pushing heavily, obviously, Teams. But you can expose SharePoint inside of the teams completely seamlessly. So just as well, you can have and expose the team structures and news functionalities inside of the team structure as well. So you can actually operate and get exposed to the news articles, create news articles, comment inside of the articles as well, even though your primary, let's say, working environment or collaboration platform would be Microsoft Teams. So you kind of use the SharePoint as the underlying portal and landing page and all of that. And this is full SharePoint functionality. So we're basically just surfacing the SharePoint in this location. So that's it, what's happening here. And it can actually be at the level of, let me actually show this in the right level. That's the leads application. That's actually a web part and full screen. And here we go. Let's get rid of that one. Now it starts looking quite nice. We're inside of Teams. We can do different things. We can function and see the news. We can create the news even using these functionalities, which is really, really cool. But that's it from my side. So that was a quick introduction on Lookbook. I wanted to go through what's available, how does it work, what are the advantages, plus the additional assets like the Lookbook templates are available, and the actual source code is available as well. So have a look on that. If you have questions, please let us know. We know that the documentation could be better, and we're trying to invest time on that. So you'll be more ready to start using these additional assets in your day-to-day work as well. But I think that's it from my side. So let's actually just for a second jump in here, and then we are heading to Tracy. And Tracy is going to show what is the modern themes and transforming from classic to modern.
So my name is Tracy. I am a senior consultant at Valore Partners. We're a Microsoft shop consulting company, corporate offices in Phoenix, Arizona. I have been working with .NET development since about 2005, 2006 as a developer. Started messing with SharePoint in around 2008. So it's been a while. Various ways to contact me if you need to: GitHub, SharePoint Exchange, LinkedIn, email, all that good stuff. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about themes, and I'll try to keep it short because I know we have another presenter coming too. First of all, what is a theme? If you don't know, essentially it's the color scheme in SharePoint, and there's sort of two renditions of that right now. There's theme in the modern UI, and then there's theme in the classic UI. And I can just give you a quick example of, Vesa did this too in his demo, but just to give you a visual of what that theme change looks like. It can be pretty dramatic, as you can see. So I think to some of us developers, it feels like fluff, but the reality of as an end user is that it's a very impactful, perhaps one of the most aesthetically impactful parts of SharePoint. And so in the modern UI, a theme has become essentially a JSON file where you're defining color buckets and what those color values will be. In the classic UI, a theme, what we're calling a theme, was referred to as a composed look, which included what's synonymous with the modern UI theme as an SP color file, where you're defining all those colors. It also could include fonts and master page as well, just FYI. And Microsoft has provided a few different tools for creating themes, depending on whether you're doing a classic theme or you're doing a modern theme. If you haven't looked at those at all, for the classic themes, it's just a pretty small footprint client install, and you get kind of a default settings when you first open it. You can look at the different. You can sort them by basically color buckets, which is sort of synonymous with fabric palette slots now, loosely translates to that. Or you can look at them in a more semantic sense, which is going to be by UI groups. But the more exciting theme tool that we have is the UI Fabric Theme Designer. For those of you that haven't seen this yet, it's super cool. It's a lot of fun. When you first open it, you're just going to get these default color settings here. And you pick these three, and then it essentially interprets the different shades of those. And you've got two view slot options here. One, so this is what I was talking about. It's kind of synonymous with the buckets that you'd see over here. So not as semantic, just kind of straight colors. But if you want to understand what that translates to, you can look at the more semantic slots, which is going to start to describe the different UI objects and what colors those would be. And then there's an accessibility piece here, which is really nice, an accessibility validation. So if I start to get, if my contrast is not sharp enough and I can't read the text on top of the background, it will warn you. So you get a little error here, that's handy. And that existed in the other one. It just wasn't, this manual contrast test here is synonymous with that, but this one's a little more, in your face if it's not going to work, that is. So just to give you guys, for those that haven't seen it, I think those are kind of cool tools. I thought I would bring that up. Okay, so why do we discuss classic versus modern themes? I've been involved in a couple projects where, unfortunately, we weren't able to make a really clean break to modern so that everything was starting modern. And you may find yourself in that situation as well. There can be a number of reasons for that. Some of those might include the need to leverage analysis tools that you can only that are only available in the cloud, like the page diagnostics tool, the modernization scanner. In one case, we just had a very high risk on-premise environment. The infrastructure itself was unstable. And so the client just wanted to get everything off and into the cloud as quickly as we could. And then from there, once we were in the cloud, do more of our modernization, as it were. In other cases, you might just encounter some user resistance, specifically eliminating subsites and just going with the hub. You know, we always try to sell them on that as much as we can, but at the end of the day, we're in a service industry, and if the users just aren't having it, then we have to adapt. So what can happen if you've got some kind of classic theme mixed with some modern theme in Office 365? One of the things that can happen is that the user can have an inconsistent UI experience, which is not ideal, because we want them to be on board. We want it to be kind of an intuitive experience for them. So I've encountered this challenge a couple times, and I found a few things to be useful. One thing that I built myself, because I just had a need for it, was a tool. It's just a simple C# console app that converts either a modern JSON theme to classic or a classic SP color theme to JSON. So we can take a look at that real quick. I have it up on my GitHub site, and the links to everything are in this PowerPoint. I'll give this to Vesa to provide, so you guys have that for reference. But I have just a really quick little README that'll walk you through exactly how it works, how it does what it does. If you're curious, so I did define here exactly the conversion that I'm doing as far as like the translation between the classic palette slots and then the modern palette slots. And if you're curious how I figured that out, there's a really cool, I stumbled onto this. So this is the Office UI Fabric React wiki, and it kind of walked me through how it was doing what it was doing, and it referenced a TypeScript file where it was defining the different semantic slots, and those translated really closely to these, or actually to the UI groups. So that is essentially how I did, if you're curious, that's how I created the translation, essentially. And it seems pretty accurate for the most part. You'll see when I go through the demo, I do still recommend opening it in modern, whichever conversion you're doing one way or the other, open it up, look at it, look at the settings pages and things like that, because there are some quirky, you might see some unusual quirky things, or suddenly there's a line in the header that you can't read the text on top of the background. So it is important to kind of test it out and vet it out, just to make sure that that's working okay. Enough talking, let's look at the demo. So this is my tool, basically. Super simple. You're welcome to download it, make any changes you want, make any suggestions you want, by all means, but it's literally just two functions. One is converting modern to classic, one is converting classic to modern. In the case of modern to classic, you're going to need to provide that JSON file, basically a valid modern theme JSON file. And then in the classic to modern, you're going to need to provide a valid SP color file. Just uncomment whichever one you want to run. Make sure you're filling in the paths for your respective file, which I have done here. For the sake of time, I kind of did this ahead of time. So I went ahead and created my own custom theme here with lots of pinks and purples, which my daughter would love because she's all about the pink and purple. And I saved this already, so it's downloaded here, and we're just going to run this and convert it. Super quick and easy. Done. Your conversion is complete. Yay. And now I have pink modern theme. I had to also provide the name of the output. I did that earlier as well. So pink modern theme.json. This is our new theme. And I went ahead and put that in a modern, I've actually already put it in my E5 Dev subscription, which Vesa, loving the E5 Dev subscription so much, by the way. So we can select the new theme that I just converted from classic to modern, and there it is. It's not crazy. I didn't get nuts with the customizations. I basically just changed these top colors here to pink and purple shades, but you can see that it did, did apply that. But I would imagine, what's the orange there? That's interesting. It takes a few refreshes. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Now it's all pink. You would probably have the scenario that I've encountered is we have a classic theme. We want to get essentially a modern version of it. So that's the typical conversion that I've done. So this, I kind of mentioned before, anytime you can start with a modern site collection, it's going to make, at like the root, it's going to make your life a lot easier as far as theming. That's just a tip and trick from my own experiences, migrating a couple of different projects into the cloud. Like I said, that's not always possible because sometimes you've got these scenarios up here, but if you can, this is going to remove a lot of headaches. Even if you're doing, because even if the user is switching context from like modern, they're doing that return to classic view, it does a really good job of converting the modern into classic itself in the cloud when you're using that root modern site collection. So a communication or a Teams template. That would be my recommendation. I've also had a couple of projects where we had to do customization, master page customization, so headers and footers essentially, and we had to do that in a hybrid environment where the user was going to see classic and going to see modern. There's a really great article by Bob German, and he took a project that Julie Turner originally created, and if you're in that situation, I would highly recommend looking into that. It's essentially what she did was, it's all the same pool of assets. So like the HTML and the CSS files, it's all the same stuff. And they just forked the tool sets so that it's applying those assets using the appropriate tool sets on the classic page and those same assets using the appropriate tool sets on a modern page. So full disclosure, I haven't actually used that solution because the project that I worked on, we wound up just creating two side-by-side standalone solutions, but I discovered this afterwards and thought it was really cool and thought if I was ever in that situation again, I would use that technique. So, and just, this is a link to some really useful resources that help me out. Some blogs, everything we've looked at is here, the wiki theming, the theme generator, and even some other stuff I didn't mention. So just good point of reference. And that's all I have.
Excellent. Thanks, Tracy. And I do apologize, Paul. We're running slightly out of time. I do have a hard stop on the hour, but hopefully we can really concentrate on your topic as well. So thank you, Tracy. Super valuable. It's definitely on me to use. I used again too much time on my demo. But let's, Paul, jump on your side of the house.
It's a privilege to present to you the latest feature on the page transformation around the user mapping. Just to let you know a little bit about myself. My name is Paul Bullock. I've been working with SharePoint for 13 years, and 6 of those with SharePoint Online, primarily around public sector and government-focused development solutions and designs. I'm a regular contributor for the PnP program. It's been a privilege to work with Bert on the PnP modernization tool. Together, we've dramatically jumped its feature set to cover almost everything on premise and online. So it's a great opportunity to do that. I've started to contribute to the PnP usage docs, which is a great repository of information for citizens developers. And outside of PnP, I actually a leader at my church. So PnP transformation, a specific tool is designed to convert from classic SharePoint pages over to modern. This is delivered by PMP PowerShell. We've got a bunch of resources here on the screen here. So if you want to have a look at those, download the module, install those, and then you can get modernizing. If you need any help with any issues with modernizing, feel free to jump on the issues list on the repository and we can help you. Both me and Bert are quite active on there. So a little bit about the user mapping capability we've added. So the typical problem we had with on-premise transformations is that the user account form to that of SharePoint Online. So we can't just essentially copy the text from one to the other. The account formats are different, so it doesn't work. So we've had to build in extra capability to essentially try and resolve these account formats to their online equivalents. So this is specifically when you're using the item metadata, item permissions, or the or if you've got contact controls within the actual page. So there's two modes of operations within the new feature. There's default detection. I've got a little video later about how that works. There's also specific mapping via CSV, so you can explicitly set which source user accounts to target which users. This also covers AD groups. We've added 3 new parameters to the convert to PnP client-side page. The user mapping file parameters, so you can specify a CSV file with these mappings in. Skip user mapping, so it's on by default. So if you want to turn that off, you're having issues with it, or you just don't want to use it, then just set that flag. We've also got the LDAP connection string option, which allows you to more specifically change the way the tool under default mode queries Active Directory. So for example, if you've got multi-domain scenarios, or you want to resolve users from a different domain, or if you've got a particularly dense Active Directory with lots and lots of user accounts, and you don't want to query the whole thing, you just want to select a subset, so you can specify OUs. And it's actually something that would be great to have a little bit of community help with, actually, because my test grid, for example, doesn't include a lot of the advanced scenarios that can come with Active Directory SharePoint combinations with SharePoint Online as well. So it would be great if you guys could check this tool out. So this is available in the November release, and try and do some on-prem to online migrations with those perhaps more complex setups, and perhaps provide some feedback on the issues list about any issues you may encounter, which is great. So another Visio. I've got a little Visio diagram around the default mode. So the way it works is you have to run the PnP transformation on a domain attached computer. And then what that does is it uses the connection you've got with that to query Active Directory to resolve the user account name to a UPN. With groups, they're represented as typically SIDs within SharePoint. So those will again query Active Directory to find their representative name. And then what that does afterwards is it then goes to SharePoint Online, tries to resolve those principles that we've discovered from Active Directory, and then determine, make sure they are exist and that they can be replaced. So what I'm going to do now is switch over to a demo. So hopefully you've got time to cover everything. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. This is, yep, cool, great stuff. So some of you may recognize this sample. It's the PnP classic business starter kit, actually, from PnP repo. So what I've done is use that. It's great for demos, and I've managed to get it working in 2013. So this is an example 2013 implementation. I've got a couple of pieces of content here, and specifically cover user permissioning. I've got this secret source recipe. So this is my source site, as I said. So there's a lot of source-based references. And in here, there's a secret recipe. I don't want all my my readers to see this. I only want a select group, so I provide permissions against these. So I'm just going to navigate here. So as you can see here, I've got a bunch of users. It's all unique permissions, so they're not inheriting in any way. Similarly, I've got my my catch-up site. Another play on source with ketchup. And this is where my transformations go. So I just want to show you quickly what I've done with my Active Directory setup, just so that give you a bit of context over these users. So I've got a bunch of demo users, and what I've done is I configured the UPNs to my my tenant. So I'm using a custom domain on my dev tenant, and that will it's called dev test. So what it will do is the tool query Active Directory, try and grab this address, and then resolve it to the SharePoint Online equivalent. Now, if you don't have these pointing to the UPN setup, then what can happen is the default mode won't resolve the user, and what you'll have to do is revert to the mapping. So let me just quickly show you. Hopefully you can see all my flicking around and come on. There we go. Okay, it's just my VM is being a bit slow. Right. So I've got some commands to run here. So I'm just going to clear that. That's my little caching hack that I use. Sometimes speed things up. So first thing, what you need to do is connect to one connection for SharePoint on-premise and one connection for SharePoint Online. So I'm just going to go in and just set those up. Because when you're doing on-premise to online conversions, you need 2 connections. So under default mode, using the client-side connection, specify the page that you want. It's a publishing page. Set target connection to be your online connection. Set connection to be your source connection. I've set this to overwrite and I'll log to the console. I specified a page layout mapping just to make it look a little bit fun as the result. The conversions. Try that one again. Please connect, otherwise that kills my demo.
And if nothing else, we can reschedule the demo, or you can do it.
Right, yay. Right.
That's definitely doable as well.
Here.
If there's a connectivity issues. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Yep, I do have the odd blip. I don't know why. Right, hopefully you can see this. So what I've done, just to recap, is I created an on-premise connection. I've created an online connection. I've specified these connections in my my conversion. So this will run through now. You can see here. So this will do this. I've specified a static reference. That's why that's not what transferring. So what I've done deliberately in the demo here is to not reference in SharePoint Online my SP install account. So I've been a bit of a naughty user, naughty admin, and specified a system account that I perhaps shouldn't have used to create my content. As what it has done is it has gone to SharePoint on-prem, connected to AD. Grabbed the UPN, for example. So I've got Carrot over in here. It's all mapping. So most of these have come through. I'll just wait for that to finish.
Just Paul, sorry for jumping in here. I need to jump to another meeting. I do apologize. But Bert is here to guide you through. Let's get this recorded, and Bert can actually host the rest of the call. And definitely, so Bert, you're on.
No worries. Cheers, Vesa.
Thank you. Yep, thank you, Paul. Looks really awesome.
So this is transferred the content and map to users. So I'm just going to show you quickly here. So I know we're running slightly over time. I'm just going to jump to page libraries. Use. So I've got my secret sauce recipe, which all looks good. So all that's come through. All the content looks great. So what I'm going to do is quickly show you the permissioning side. As you noticed, there might be some bits missing from this. I'll show you in the second one what happens when you use the actually. Come on. All right, I'm just going to go to the permissions just to show you that these have been resolved and they've been copied and crossed to as you can see, all the users from the on-prem version. So most of those have come through, bar the ones that I've deliberately broken for demo reasons. One thing to note about the Trevor one that didn't resolve as well was because he's left the organization as disabled in AD, so it's not been resolved. So what I want to do then is perhaps remap the Trevor account and my SP install account to someone that's got a bit, someone that's actually active and different users. So I'm just going to quickly grab my script here. So what I've done here is I specified a mapping file. This is a CSV mapping file that references the source account and the targets. So I've got SIDs here. This because in SharePoint on-premise they're groups. Which I've remapped those, so I'm just going to close that and reference that. So I'm going to run this for you. Hopefully that'll be nice and quick and show you what happens when that comes through. So I'll transfer through. As you can see here, while it's loading, the transformation transformation tool does do a lot of activities with your target pages in order to get everything across, headers, web part mappings, even analyzes the pages and so forth. So if you haven't seen this before. So as you can see here, a lot more being resolved. You get these mapping and user bin replaced references coming back. So what I've done in my mapping is I changed Trevor to Taylor, who's very kindly taken over the content ownership of that page, and that's done. So I'm just going to refresh this page here. So that's come through now. You have got this extra PnP transform account. It's because the connection I use is using that account rather than my own. So just to separate things a little bit. So you've got Taylor coming through and so forth. Just to show you what the page looks like when it's rendered with all of its everything working. So because it also includes things like header details and metadata as well. So my name's come through in the remapping that was originally SP install. And so forth. So what I wanted to quickly show you, if I've got time, and then we're in a reading, is the final part was the LDAP override. So I'm just going to quickly clear my mapping cache because we use a lot of caching within the transformation tooling to speed things up. So I just want to make sure that it's nice and clean and empty. So what I've done here in Active Directory is I've specified to only resolve these 4 users. So if you've got a very large Active Directory and you don't want to run the whole thing, then you can control that. So I'm just going to run that quickly. Come on. No, that's fine. I haven't got SP installed in my list. I have a feeling I've missed a step here. Let's see. Just going to refresh this. And yes, I have. What I hadn't done is got rid of the permissions. So I'm just going to very quickly run that, get rid of these again. So I just want to revert it back to its original state and then just redo this again. Just to show you. Yeah, cool. That's almost there. Good stuff. All right, awesome. So we should now have 3 users, myself and 2 of the users that were specified on the permissions here. So these 2 here were specified in my CDT, so I can validate that that's definitely come through now. Okay, that is everything from me.
Right, thanks, Paul. Really cool demo, and I think this is a functionality that now truly enables us to do on-prem to SharePoint Online page transformations and really make them very useful since we have this account mapping feature in place. As mentioned by Paul, this is beta, guys, so feel free to try it out, give us feedback, test it in more complex scenarios. We would love to make this even better. And again, apologies for running slightly late, but I think it was definitely useful to have this demo recorded. Yeah, I think with that, we can wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.